Yes, welcome in to the show that never ends. What a night. I am Bill Kenney. I am here hosting in place of John Schneider, who we will get into in a minute, uh, talking about the SNL50 anniversary special. What a night. I'm joined with some unbelievable guests. Of course, we're brought to you as usual by latenighter.com. And I'm thrilled to introduce two unbelievable guests here on the show tonight. First off, my fellow super fan and someone who's been here since the beginning, the unbelievable Sammy Kay. How are you, Sammy?
Bill, I'm doing amazing. It's we obviously earlier in the week previewed this special, and I feel like the writers were listening a little bit because I think we got a lot of things right. But no, just in general, I feel very honored to be here breaking down such a historic night in television history, and just proud of this network in general. Obviously, we'll talk about what our friends were able to do tonight, and just feeling a lot of love for this thing that has been such a big part of my life. Since I was a little kid, and just to see where it is tonight and be able to talk about it with you guys, I'm just super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a moment in the making for 50 years. They kept saying that all week on every platform, every commercial that you could possibly see. So to be here finally, I know we've all been anticipating this for a long time. Let me introduce our other guest, the unbelievable Victoria Franso. How are you feeling tonight, Victoria?
I am feeling great. First and foremost, I love when I unintentionally match with Sammy. My fellow. I know. Well, it's a Detroit double trouble situation, so I'm very sorry.
Absolutely.
But if I could share a few words, I just need to get this off my chest. I was overwhelmed with many emotions: joy, nostalgia, gratitude, excitement. Of course, regular listeners of this podcast know how much the show means to me personally, what it means to the three of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. I've been connected to the show for most of my life since I was a little girl, and to see a lot of those cast members host etc. together was incredibly powerful. It reignited my love for the show. It was a reminder after reminder after reminder of what I love about this show and what so many of us love about the show, and especially as a performer, it reminded me why I do what I do and why I took a big risk years ago, leaving my parents' home and moving to another city and state away from my family with $0, struggling, but all worth it. And there's something about making people laugh and getting to explore other people and embracing them as characters or whatever it may be. I don't know how to describe it, but I was certainly incredibly emotional tonight and caught myself tearing up. Not to get too into the feelings, but I am a Pisces. I thought about that little girl years ago who felt weird and out of place her entire life. Oh man, am I going to cry on the show for the first time? Hello. Trying to fit. I thought about that little girl who felt weird and was trying to fit in when she wasn't meant to, and fitting a square into a circle, which led to like such bad decisions and a lot of self-consciousness. But it wasn't until I actually got into comedy that I realized who I was, and that healed me. And I've only ever felt safe in comedy, and everyone on that screen and beyond has given me such safety throughout my life. And I know it's not just me, and I know this isn't about me. It's about 50 years of magic and all of us in this community who feel the same way. Again, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But it changed my life and it saved my life. So if I could, put into words, that's as many words for now, but it could be endless words.
So beautifully said, Victoria. You were not alone. I mean, I knew I was going to be emotional all night. I knew, and I'm like, I'll be fine for the red carpet. And then, like, the very first person they bring out is Tina Fey, and she's like, Jan Hooks was my favorite cast member, and I'm just like, like, it hits you in so many different ways, and it's just, we've talked about it so many different ways on the show, how it connects generations. You don't have to be a certain age to enjoy SNL. We all have kind of the same origin story, just at different, entry ramps. And, we all got to celebrate that tonight in a very special way. So typically what we do, this is a show that if you're new here or you haven't been on with us, we do a hot take show after every new SNL. which is typically on Saturday night, not Sunday night, and typically at 1:10 in the morning, not 11:50 in the evening. So we do give our hot takes. It's kind of a gargantuan mission to try to nail that down. But Sammy, I'm giving you the reins on this to start. What is your hot take from the 3.5-hour extravaganza?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, it's weird to be doing this show not when I'm, even more sleep deprived, at 1:10 in the morning. So maybe my takes won't be as hot, but there was a lot of show tonight, so I'm digesting this in real time. But my biggest sort of takeaway from tonight is we saw a little bit of this in SNL50, but in the age of social media and YouTube and just the accessibility of individual sketches, sort of living on the internet forever, it really feels like these anniversary specials, which, starting with the 15th anniversary, was a clip show with, segments throughout and people introducing things and, cast coming back in that capacity to becoming really an all-star episode of SNL that we've sort of talked about wanting in the past. And sometimes we do get that with a Martin Short Christmas episode or a Betty White episode where you're getting these cast members and celebrity cameos and things like that. But I think we've really only got 2 sort of clip packages and 1 full sketch played with Don't Look Back in Anger tonight. And instead we were chock full of sketches, which was a big surprise. Obviously SNL40 sort of, we saw seeds of that, but I think we definitely had at least double the sketches tonight that we had in SNL40, which, like any episode of SNL, some are going to work and some don't. But for me as a fan to be able to see, just all-time legends and just celebrities and hosts who have become in recent years, big parts of the show, being able to see that be, put together in this special was just amazing to see.
Yeah, you bring up some great points, Sammy, and I was there. That was I talked about this on our 4-hour show on Monday. The 15th anniversary was my superfan origin story. That was really kind of what cemented it for me. And it was just a clip package with some people thrown in there like O.J. Simpson and Charlton Heston, icons that we want to still remember. No, but it progressed as we got to the 25th and we saw people get together. We had the casts come together in different ways. And then, as you said, at the 40th, we did see a lot of sketches, a lot of mixing of eras. So I know we talked off air right before we went on, Sammy, that it was kind of crazy how many new sketches we got. And we're going to break them all down for you tonight. But first, I want to get Victoria's hot take.
I'm going to surprise everyone here. I don't have one. I am still processing and absorbing everything. I do also want to call out, I'm wearing my Chris Farley pin. I guess perhaps my hot take would be, I wish there was more of him featured. I mean, they did a great job of honoring him, but he's on my Mount Rushmore of SNL cast members. And I wear this in honor of him. And see, I'm getting emotional. I'm going to catch myself though, because we're not going to cry tonight, all right? Not in front of everybody.
Want a handkerchief?
I do. But I said it out loud and looked at my dad, and he gave me a reassuring nod. I said he should have been here, and I'm very sad about it. But yeah, I don't really have one. I'm just processing. I've lots of, again, it's all good emotions. Just a lot. Yeah.
I mean, we'll have plenty to talk about, obviously, and it is hard to kind of nail this down. This isn't a typical episode of SNL, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I have really a hot take other than, like, we got some huge names. We'll say it right at the top that there were huge names that weren't there, that were very much missed and kind of inexplicable, but everybody has their reasons. They might have scheduling difficulties. They may have things that I'll just name a couple off the top, like Dan Aykroyd, Dana Carvey, Bill Hader, obviously. So there were some names, but let's not let that damper all the people that we did get tonight. And let me bring up right before we get into our cold open. The reason I'm sitting in the host chair tonight is because our friend John Schneider and James Stevens were on the red carpet. And if you did not have an incredibly meta moment as you're watching NBC and see our friends on the red carpet and, saying, oh, he's talking to Terry Sweeney. Oh, there goes Swy Bell. Oh, and just, John brought us all together. He's just unbelievable for what he's been able to put together here. He's our Lauren, as we always like to say.
Yep.
So I want to say at the top, just kudos to having that moment for him. And, we're very excited for him as well.
Yeah, I freaked out when I saw him interviewing Adam Sandler. Absolutely. I was like, oh my God. And I'm very proud of him. I do want to thank him for giving me a chance to be on this podcast and geek out over a show I love so much with, fellow lovers of the show. And I'm very proud of him and James. And I took a lot of pictures on my phone. I felt like a mom. And, my dad didn't understand what I was doing at first. I was like, I know him. That's
I was taking pictures like I was at a concert. Like I was like if you go through my camera roll, it's just a bunch of pictures of John and James. But no, that was super exciting. And again, I want to reiterate what these guys have said. Our friends have worked really hard to get that opportunity, and like you said, they've brought us together, and they're the reason why we're doing the show tonight. And has really for a show that I've loved. I never thought that as a kid whose bar mitzvah theme was SNL. So at the age of 12, I already loved it enough to where I had all these samurai delicatessen themed things at my bar mitzvah and lunch ladyland and things like that. I never thought I'd love SNL even more today, and I really got to thank this community and John and everything that this network has done. So just amazing to see tonight.
Yes, definitely. So we'll start off here with the cold open. And I know we had some, I'm going to reference the marathon a little bit that Sammy and I were part of on Monday with our predictions. We'll definitely point out the ones we got right. But, I know when we talked about the cold open, this is typically something that was, extravaganza in its upper heights, in previous anniversary shows, even the 15th. So we get a really quiet moment here. And, I'm already in tears watching this show as Sabrina Carpenter and Paul Simon come on stage. And, Paul says, I sang this with George Harrison back in 1976, and they start singing Homeward Bound. We get some funny lines here. With the music tonight, we won't get too deep into the actual performances, but I'd like both of your opinions on what we saw to open the show. So, Sammy, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, this was I found this to be a very interesting decision to open the show like this. It is such a wild difference in tone and energy as SNL50 with the Jimmy Fallon, Justin Timberlake energy, high energy performance versus this honestly had a bit of a somber tone even, but really great to see Paul Simon back performing. I didn't know for sure if we would see that. I know I just heard, recently that, maybe he's not performing as much, or that would be something that would maybe be a challenge. And I thought that was great to see somebody who, from the start, being a part of SNL, and then somebody like Sabrina Carpenter, who I think will have a pretty substantial future on SNL. I guess it is kind of weird to open your 50th anniversary special with somebody who has only made one appearance on the show, but I think she was there to support Paul Simon. So I think she was great in that role. So I was surprised to see the choice, but I think it worked, and I think there's so many little moments throughout tonight where they use music to kind of pay homage to older performances or things on the show, and a lot of the lead up to the special between the concert on Friday and the music documentary. Like, music is such a big part of SNL, so I think it was cool to sort of honor that with somebody like Paul Simon at the top of the show.
Victoria, what did you think of our cold open here?
I thought it was a nice grounding moment. There was a lot of hype and a lot of energy, and I think, personally speaking, it gave me a moment just to be like, okay, this is it, like, kind of like relax before I jump in and not be like, oh my God, the whole time. I thought it was a great contrast of, someone prominent in SNL's past with someone who's an up and coming star from, SNL's present and future. I really liked the pairing, to be honest. I think it was representative of SNL's audience from, 50 years until now, and, how we've all kind of gathered, and, I love Paul Simon, and I'm sure some folks my parents' generation love Sabrina Carpenter. I don't think they would skip her if she showed up on the radio, but yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a great, mending of generations, and I thought it tied old and new together pretty well.
Yeah, it's always a risk especially with an anniversary special that people will go back and watch over and over again. Sabrina Carpenter seems destined for superstardom, and probably is already there in most people's minds. She's one of those artists, I think, that kind of transcends eras. So I do like this. Obviously, Paul is up there in age. He can't sing like he used to, so you do have to have somebody on stage with him like this. I think Miley would have been a better choice just because she had done that at the 40th, but she obviously had something to do a little bit later in the show. So overall, I like this. People are mentioning in chat, couldn't really hear the live from New York, so that kind of that kind of sullies it just the tiniest bit, because that's really important to the show. But overall, I think that's great. But let's talk about the monologue. So we get Steve Martin. Whatever happened to that guy? He's the newest diversity hire. He's here vacationing. He came back from vacationing at the Gulf of Steve Martin, which, oh, topical jokes. You're going to be so funny to revisit at SNL50. So he does some really funny jokes here. He does some stand-up, which we don't typically get from him these days. And he points out a couple people in the audience like David Letterman, John Mulaney, Bill Murray. Mulaney comes out and does a little bit. And, this is a pretty good monologue. It's not, I think at the 40th, it was very heavy with too many people, kind of got away from the whole idea of monologue. But I think this mostly worked. Victoria, what did you think?
I thought so too. I thought it was punchy, and it had, you can't go wrong with Steve Martin. Shout out to the ice bit with Martin Short. And I did a double take, and I realized that was Devin and Mikey Day taking him away. I thought it was funny. I loved what's the word? Just the visuals of seeing everyone in like white blazers behind him and buttoned up, and then us really getting a pan shot of the audience. It really brought everything together, and I thought he did a good job. It wasn't too much, wasn't too little. It was, I think, for me, just the right amount of time, length, I should say, and calling in people. I did love that David Letterman is sitting next to Keke Palmer, and I wonder what they had to talk about, if they had anything to talk about at all. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
Sammy, what did you think?
Yeah, I think this was almost like my first hint of the night that this is going to almost feel like more of just like a regular sort of structured episode of SNL versus the SNL40 monologue. It really felt like, oh yeah, we're going to comment on, these are the type of monologues you get, and these are the type of people who do monologues. And kind of like you said, it sort of became not very much a monologue. And we did obviously get the appearances by Mulaney and Martin Short in this, but it was really focused on Steve, pretty, not safe per se, but just it was a monologue, and it could have easily been slotted into a Steve Martin hosted show had he hosted this season, versus it being solely sort of calling out things from the history of SNL. Like obviously he had some jokes here and there, but felt really more sort of standard stand-up, which I'm never going to complain about getting time with Steve Martin on SNL. I do feel like in some ways Mulaney kind of stole the show for me with this monologue, and I do wonder, is it a better choice to maybe just give Mulaney this monologue versus Steve Martin? But we did have a Mulaney hosted episode this season, so again, I'm happy to see Steve. I even had in my notes like, I really hope this isn't the only time we see him tonight, which it ended up being with Steve. I think this is a good opportunity though for me to shout out. I know our friend Mike Murray, he announced on Twitter today that his stats computer died. The computer that's gotten him, through the 5 years of this show doing stats. And he even called out during this monologue on Twitter how they got the number of hosts wrong. It's actually 655 versus 894. And he gave me breaking news to share to the show that he got a new MacBook today. He's ready to go. So the stats are still here. Don't worry about it, and he'll always be here to call out SNL when they get their own numbers wrong. So just wanted to share that. But no, I mean, overall, again, always happy to see Steve Martin on the show. But I do wonder if we do get an SNL50 if we get Mulaney in this spot.
Yeah, and great shout out to Mike. He does amazing work, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say on Wednesday about all the stuff he's going to have to break down from tonight. SNL is fond of making up numbers, especially in monologues, especially in anniversaries. So it is.
I think they do it to piss us off.
Absolutely,
like it's like intentional.
And I think the two murderers is a little under on the over/under, but you know the two he was talking about. Yeah, much of what you guys have said. I mean, there's going to be Easter eggs sprinkled out this episode tonight. And my first favorite one, because that's just Steve says, typically this is the weakest part of the show. Tom Hanks said that at the 15th in his monologue. So I love that little nod to those of us who obsess over this show. Getting Letterman on, who has never been on the show, was really great. And yeah, I mean, Mulaney was really good. The writers out in the rain. It was they panned too quickly. I definitely saw my buddy Robert Smigel. So if you had that on your bingo card, go ahead and mark that off right now that I mentioned Robert Smigel. But that was a really nice nod to how the writers are often treated on SNL. So I think this was a great way to start the show. All right, so then we get our first sketch proper. And we get the return of the Lawrence Welk Show. First time we've seen this since season 38. And it's a mashup, which we will also see another running theme throughout this night. We get one of my favorite characters of all time, Will Ferrell's Robert Goulet, playing the male role as he introduces the singers and the girls. And we get ScarJo, Kim Kardashian, Anna, who's been everywhere this weekend, and good on her. And hopefully we get her hosting soon. Obviously, we get Fred as well. And so this was, a callback to one of the most popular sketches of the early 2010s. Sammy, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, the Lawrence Welk Show, it's something that when I was watching SNL, live during that era, honestly was not one of my favorite Kristen Wiig characters. And I really do think it was because they did it a ton. As I've gone back and revisited those eras of that era of the show, I've really appreciated the Lawrence Welk Show a lot more. So I was really happy to see this. I loved the crossover here with Robert Goulet. Again, just going back to SNL Origins. For me personally, the Best of Will Ferrell DVD was something I had volume 1, volume 2. I don't think I ever had volume 3, but the Robert Goulet character impression that he did was great. And I think he really slipped right into that role. I don't know the last time he did that, if he brought it back in one of his hosting appearances. But I don't think I've seen that in quite some time from him. So I think he did great there. And I'm, as far as like the celebrity cameos go, they're all solid. I do feel like a running theme for me personally throughout the night is in certain situations would have liked to see more cast versus just, celebrity cameos. But I don't think, in this sketch, that detracted for it for me personally. Obviously great for Anna to get that spot here. And then, Kristen Wiig, when she has the little arms and is just, using it to, play bongos on Kim Kardashian and everything like that, was really funny. So, I was really happy to see this.
Yeah, I know a lot of us kind of smacked our heads when we saw that Kim K was one of the people announced with celebrities coming on, and like, she's only hosted once. It wasn't a very good episode. What are we doing? This was a good place for her, I think. So I'm not mad at it. And obviously they went for the very obvious joke when they started drumming on her. But Victoria, what did you think of Lawrence Welk / Robert Goulet?
The first thing that comes to mind is my dad's reaction to seeing Dunice for the first time. He's never seen that before. And he was just like, what is this? I go, you had to be there. I cannot explain this to you. But no, I thought it was nicely done. And, I'm going to echo everyone in the chat's sentiments of Anna is getting her flowers. She's been a prominent woman in comedy, and I'm glad she's getting the recognition she deserves this week, and that we've really put a focus on her for this anniversary special and everything leading up to it. I really enjoyed it. I love ScarJo there, and sure, welcome to the chat, Kim Kardashian. Whatever. But no, I thought it was a great crossover. I thought it was really nicely done. I love Dunice. I identify as her in my friend group. If I have to, my hands are bigger.
Let's see the hands. Okay. Yeah.
I have big hands though. It's the opposite in that way. But no, I thought it was nicely done. I want to also shout out throughout this whole thing, costume and set. I really loved it here. I think it set the tone for me and what to expect for the rest of the episode. I know that's kind of a weird thing to look at, but I really love the dresses. But no, I thought it was playful, fun, and shout out Robert Goulet. I was surprised, but I love that the twist of this was that Dunice and him end up in love, and he makes her a special helmet.
Yes. And our friend Mike Murray is in the chat. Hi, Mike. Points out that May 2005 was the last Goulet. So if my math is correct, that is Will's first hosting gig. So that's been a minute since we got that. And yeah, I mean, this is not a canonical show, but let's pretend for the sake of love that Goulet and Denise are together somewhere.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Not the last SNL character coupling that we'll see in this episode.
Not at all. Yeah. And let's point out one person I did not mention who only has a second on, but he gets his flowers a lot tonight. We get Keno. Keno?
Right.
Wow. It's not even 1:10 a.m. and I'm saying the name's wrong. Keenan was the contortionist. So kudos to getting him early on here. I do like this. I like both of these sketches. I do think it was done a little bit too much, but I like the last line too, to think that he almost picked Kim Kardashian was a great little zinger to end this. I mean, we get two all-time icons. Many consider Mount Rushmore with Kristen and Will right off the bat. So I think that's a great way to start the sketches tonight. Next up, we get talk about icons. We get Black Jeopardy, and we bring this back. I know, Sammy, we talked about this on Monday as kind of a fingers crossed that we get some version of this. We get Keenan, Leslie Jones back in the building. She did a phenomenal job on the red carpet, but kind of wondering if she would actually be in any sketches. Her history with leaving the show, it was not great, but I'm so happy to see that she's been brought back into the fold and brought back into the family. We get Tracy Morgan, and then we get Eddie Murphy with his redemption arc tonight from SNL50, playing Tracy Morgan. We also get Tom Hanks reprising his MAGA role, and so let's start. And Chris Rock. So start us off, Victoria. What did you think of the return of Black Jeopardy?
Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. I was actually thinking about my favorite sketches, and my Mount Rushmore of sketches favorite of all time would be Black Jeopardy with Tom Hanks. That's one of my favorites. And I was so glad that it came back. Love Tracy Morgan, and I think this one was one where I really got to bond with my dad because he's obviously a little bit older than me. But he got to see Eddie Murphy, and that was really delightful. My dad really loves Tracy Morgan. So Eddie Murphy nailed Tracy Morgan. I thought it was really fun. And shout out to the cookie tin. I wrote down shout out cookie tin. That is just, if you know, you know. I can't really explain that to folks. Is it cookies or is it a sewing kit? That was something that also brought my dad and I a lot of joy. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good energy. It was a great nod to the Black Jeopardy sketches we've seen before without kind of taking it too out of place. And then, a nice button with Chris Rock there at the end. But I enjoyed it a lot.
Sammy, what did you think of Black Jeopardy?
Yeah, this was great to see. Eddie Murphy as Tracy Morgan was my first like audible big laugh of the night. The whole bit about only eating 4 cheese lasagna was like perfect to me. Also feels like a real full circle moment because I know, in the lore of post SNL50 with Eddie coming back and not really participating in any sketches, is that they wanted him to do his Bill Cosby impression during the Celebrity Jeopardy sketch. And I think we end up seeing Keenan do that. And then here we are in Black Jeopardy 10 years later, and he's doing an impression of another cast member. I love that. That impression was so good. The Chris Rock element to it, he like, I feel like anytime he talks about SNL, he loves to bring up the fact that he had to be the black cast member to follow up Eddie Murphy. He loves to bring that up. I feel like you can do a clip package of every time he's either hosted or, come back and said something like that. So kind of like that callback. I do feel like if I had to critique this, and it's just the way that these specials are put together. There's not a dress rehearsal, not a ton of time to rehearse really. The Tom Hanks ending, as great as it was to see that character back, because he was such a highlight from one of those old Black Jeopardy sketches, felt like I don't know, something with the way the delivery was or something kind of ended it on more of a flat note, when everything with Leslie and Tracy and Eddie Murphy was great. All of the running jokes about what is Saturday Night Live, and saying, oh, it's a show with Tracy Morgan and Tina Fey and answering 30 Rock, like all that stuff was so good. So yeah, I'm glad we got to see this, even if I found it to be a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, I fully agree about the Hanks part. It was a little bit too beat for beat from what we saw in the iconic sketch back in 2016. But other than that, I mean, and I'm not going to complain about Tom Hanks being on my screen in any form. So yeah, I like this too. I think obviously the jokes about SNL and the way they're just kind of beating it in the ground. And Leslie's like, oh, wait, that show that was on Saturday nights. Oh, can I say the famous opening line? And it's Soul Train. And I know when I was growing up, Soul Train would come on at 1 a.m. after SNL. So it was something that kind of hit me in a strange way to think about. Yeah, this is great. Getting to see people who, Tracy, obviously what happened before the 40th, having that terrible accident, wasn't able to be at the show. Eddie, as I kind of referenced, coming on, being on SNL for the first time in many decades, and it feeling a little flat as he came out and didn't really, he wasn't in any sketches, wasn't doing anything other than getting accolades. So to see him for the first time of a couple times this evening and doing a spot on Tracy Morgan was a highlight of the night for me, for sure. Next, we get Emma Stone to talk about the 50 years of physical comedy. So with the clip packages, we'll just kind of talk about what's new about it. We get Emma, we get Sally O'Malley, which is another prediction. I think, I mean, it was the most on the nose thing that we could have thought, being 50. But yeah, she introduces with Molly 50 years of physical comedy. We get a lot of different clips from Belushi, Farley, Chevy, obviously Mary Catherine Gallagher, Cowbell, things like that. So quickly, Victoria, what did you think of the clip package? Were you happy to see Emma back on the show?
Oh, of course. What a question, Bill. What a question. No, yeah, I did. I loved it. I was expecting Sally O'Malley to be a full sketch, to be quite honest with you, because of the 50, but honored to see her regardless. I'm actually looking at a piece of her art on my wall right here that says, "'Cause I'm 50." And I was expecting her to make an appearance. I love the energy, and I love the clip packages. Those were the things that brought the emotions out of me. So I'm glad we're not going to talk too much about them, because I will cry. I'm bound to cry tonight. I just want everyone to know there will be a tear at some point from me during this. So
Victoria,
I enjoyed it.
This is a safe space. So if you need to cry, that's fine. Just put yourself on mute. No, I'm just kidding. Sammy, what did you think of this introduction?
Yeah, I agree. We'll never complain about seeing Emma Stone on my screen. I love how she's become, such a friend of the show. I believe she met her husband on the show as well. And then seeing Sally O'Malley again, something that I don't think was on the bingo card, but should have been on the bingo card, to see that, mentioning the 50 years old. I did find it interesting to see what clips they sort of chose to bring into this. Things I noted that are, stuff from the last 10 years. Farewell, Mr. Bunting, the Kyle and Beck sketch where they're playing the brothers and they get sprayed by the water hose. That's one of my favorites. And then most recently, Melissa McCarthy from the Martin Short episode with the car. Was very surprised to see no Lisa from Temecula, unless I missed it. Kind of, we're trying to read into these things. Was surprised to not see that in the clip package. And then one other thing I thought was interesting was it did feel like their definition of what physical comedy is kind of stretched by the end of it. You're throwing in, what I love, the sketch with Jan and Phil Hartman dancing. It almost feels like that is sort of the show's choice of not doing multiple clip packages that, okay, well, we got to find a place to show this iconic sketch. So all of this from a production standpoint, I found to be interesting. And as we go throughout the night and we see there's less of these packages, it kind of all makes sense. Was happy to see some of this new material.
Yeah, you're absolutely on point. I think Love is a Dream is an interesting one. Dancing in the Dark, but these are probably two of the most memorable sketches when people from the show have died. That they have brought on. So, there's not a lot of physicality there. So it does kind of bend the mind a little bit as far as what was considered. But I am definitely glad to see clips like that make it in some form. So then the next major sketch we get, this is going to be an interesting conversation. We get the return of it's been the first time since season 50. We haven't seen this since Domingo. The recurring character that SNL has been craving since probably David Pumpkins is brought back for a third time. We open with Marty and Molly, so we have a new kind of addition to the crew. Sabrina Carpenter is here. Her song was famously used in the first Domingo all the way back in 2024. If you don't remember it, go look it up. And then
All the way back.
yeah, I mean, this was a choice, and I think I like it for the fact that we do get a lot of the current cast. So we get all the people who were in the original. We get Heidi, Ego, Sarah, Chloe, Dismukes. We also get in the background, not saying anything, we get Jaj, Devin, Jane Wickline, and who am I missing?
Emil Keem.
Emil is there as well. So we get kind of an opportunity to get the current cast involved in the celebration. Not something that other anniversary specials have really gone out of their way to do. Victoria, what did you think of Domingo?
Oh my goodness gracious me. Chaotic from top to bottom. It was great. I loved Martin and Molly introing that and just having them be the parents. I did love that Sabrina was singing an Ariana Grande song. It wasn't Ariana, but you know what I mean. And, paying tribute to her as, she did, as Ariana paid tribute to Sabrina. I loved the addition of groomsmen. I love that POV and that angle. And then and look who the groomsmen were. You have Bowen, you got Andy Samberg, which very surprising. My father was like, "Is that Andy?" I was like, "How do you know that?" Yeah, yes, that is Andy. You have Beck Bennett, and who else? Kyle Mooney. How could I forget? So I really love the addition of that. It was, like I said, extremely chaotic. Then you have Ronaldo and Santiago. I really love that they utilize the great relationship that Marcelo has with Pedro Pascal and Bad Bunny. And if you've been watching recently, that sketch of I forgot what it was called, but where Pedro Pascal plays Marcelo's mother, and then Bad Bunny in a second edition of it played his auntie. So I loved it. I loved the tying of the strings together, and I should say the invisible string of it. Connecting Ronaldo being his brother, and then Santiago is doing the home renovations, and then seeing Molly Shannon grind on Bad Bunny, and then Sabrina with Pedro. It was wild. I loved it. It was definitely not traditional. I do wonder if they'll ever do another rendition of Domingo after this, given everything, given everything that went down. I know a girl can dream. Okay. And just the plot twist with, Andy Dismuke's character too. It was great.
Yeah, I didn't mention the groomsmen. I am glad you brought them up. Obviously, I was going to get to that, but thank you for doing that. We didn't get the PDD Lonely Island mashup that we kind of hoped for, but we do get a partial Lonely Island / Good Neighbor mashup with the groomsmen. Sammy, did that excite you, or anything about this sketch excite you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I didn't sort of clock that as sort of a connection there. But like I like that happened. What I would have maybe preferred a real Lonely Island Good Neighbor mashup to this, but this is something that I'm a little torn on, because I do feel like early on the night when I see this, my first reaction is like, are we taking real estate out of the 50th anniversary special, do something that is so recent, so contemporary, something that they've already brought back once this season, that is that the right choice here? And I'm somebody who I was on the hot take show for the Ariana Grande episode, and I was pro Domingo on that episode. I think I was the most positive on it. So I've been overall, I haven't understood the hatred of these sketches. Having said that, yeah, I don't know if I would personally choose to do this, but I think having Sabrina Carpenter in the building, they couldn't help themselves. Even though I do really feel like she's going to host in the next year. So do you bring it back again when she hosts? Like, there's all these like production decisions that fascinate me. But what we got, if I'm judging it on face value, I liked it. Like I liked the building of the world. I liked the addition of Martin Short and Molly Shannon. Just seeing those two great physical comedians bounce off of each other. We saw more of the physical side from Molly than Martin in this particular sketch. And then, building on it with the groomsmen, with Andy, Beck, and Kyle, and Bowen. And then obviously Pedro Pascal and Bad Bunny come into it as well. I guess for me, it's I have mixed emotions about this. I do feel like as we got further into the night and I kind of got a more understanding of like, oh, this is going to be a sketch heavy special, that, I still was able to get a lot of other things that I think maybe deserve that slot. So I think on rewatch, I might appreciate it more, knowing that in the grand scheme of the show, it didn't take away necessarily time from other things we maybe could have seen. But I'll be curious to see how Domingo lives on if we get to SNL50, if this is something that people are going to be like, this was a big sketch.
I kind of, just to follow the wedding theme, it's like something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And just, I love that they included a recent sketch. I mean, I think what SNL's trying to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but they are trying to, get this next generation of audiences in. And this was it was a very viral sketch. And, she even brought Domingo out to one of her concerts. So I think perhaps that's why they fit that in, is just everyone loves it. And, they want to cater to the youngins, the younger than means, because I'm now not the youngest.
Yeah, I think great points by both of you. I mean, I'm not mad at this, because I think, with Lisa from Temecula, that was kind of forced on us. This may be a little bit forced on us, but it is huge. So that has to be acknowledged. You are trying to draw the next generation of super fans into SNL. So this is a good way to do that with such huge stars. Marcelo's, the biggest star outside of Bowen on the show, and Sabrina Carpenter's, as we've already mentioned, so big right now. So I'm not mad at this. This felt like the Californians in the 40th, where it was an opportunity to bring in a lot of different generations with the current cast. So I think this probably made sense. And remember, in the Californians, we got a young singer named Taylor Swift. So I don't know whatever happened to her, but she was already on her way up in 2015, obviously, but she was not Taylor Swift that we know today. So this could be the beginning of something. Next, we get really quickly, I'll just mention that we get a Deep Thoughts, which is lovely. Hearing Phil Hartman's voice on the show will never make me upset. It's just a quick looking back at 50 years. The real treasure is the money we're making. So I like that we got a shout out to one of the most famous pre-tapes in the history of the show. Then we get what's become a staple of all anniversary shows, the Q&A. So to do it this time, we get the icons from Weekend Update, from so many different things, SNL all-timers in Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. We get appearances by Quinta Brunson, Tim Meadows, which was fantastic to see him back. Ryan Reynolds, Nate Bargatze, Donna Richards getting her moment in the sun, wardrobe supervisor. John Lovitz, Cher, Keith Richards, John Hamm, Bad Bunny, Seth Meyers, Reverend Al and Ray Romano, Fred Armisen, Peyton Manning, Zach Galifianakis, and I'm sure I missed a couple, but wow, this was a great moment here. Sammy, what did you think of the Q&A? Was there anything in particular that stood out from the questions that were asked?
Yeah, I think the SNL50 Q&A is probably the clip from that special I revisit the most. Like, I loved it. The moment with Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David is so great. And I think there was a lot good in here. The Ryan Reynolds bit of just like asking how he is and saying, "Oh, great! Like, what have you heard?" Like, that was really like when I saw them on the red carpet, I was like, "Wow, I can't believe they're here." So that was a great moment. I think the personal highlights for me have got to be the Julia Louis-Dreyfus Adam Driver moment with the emotional support dog. I thought that was really great. And then the Zach Galifianakis, I just want to relax and watch Kanye perform joke was really, really great too. So yeah, those are probably my highlights.
Yeah, we've entered a time where we're going to talk about the people who have been canceled since season 40. G brings up in the chat, was there a Q&A at the 15th? No, but it was Robin Williams riffing, so that was kind of our audience shot. So that was kind of the way that we got to see. Obviously, not exactly the same, but you're looking for those audience shots and see all the famous people who don't get lines in the show. Victoria, is there anything in particular that you liked from this segment?
Funny enough, I was going to call out the same two as Sammy, and that was the emotional support dog and Zach Galifianakis. Those were the ones that stood out to me too. That and of course the one and only Cher. But yeah, very interesting. Thought it was interesting that Ryan Reynolds was there. There's been like a lot of talk that they have like a lot of money and they're really trying to make themselves look good or whatever it is. And I was just like, interesting conspiracy theory. But no, I thought it was funny that he was like, oh, what have you heard? But yeah, really, really funny. I love the call of like, hey, are we just like showcasing celebrities that don't have bits later in the show right now? And everyone's like, no. No, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I know when some of the names were announced and they mentioned Reverend Al Sharpton, and I'm like, wonder what he's going to do. But yeah, I like this. This is kind of one of those really good moments, and it's good kind of time capsule when you do go back and watch these, for better or worse. As we talked about with the 40th, you get the Sarah Palin of it all and things like that. So yeah, I mean that's there's so many good moments here. I do love the Julia Louis-Dreyfus stuff. Adam Driver being Adam Driver was fantastic. Galifianakis, who we've all been kind of craving to come back to the show, showing his still wonderful comedic timing. John Hamm asking if he's funny, and then them cutting to Bad Bunny and talking in Spanish and saying that no, he's actually the funny one. Yeah, and Fred, I do like this with Fred carrying around the sketch. So I think that was some of the really big highlights that we got from this, and I think Tina and Amy were the perfect people to kind of talk about this.
Yeah, I want to add really quickly. This is feels like the only logical place for me to mention, just to close the loop on Robert Downey Jr. Really feels like this would have been a good spot for him in the Q&A. So just rest in peace to the Robert Downey Jr. bit that I've been doing on this podcast for the last couple of years. I guess we'll have to wait till SNL50.
well, he did. Did he get a small clip in the physicality clip package? I think
I'll have to rewatch.
I can't remember. It's
possible.
It's
does that count towards my draft?
It does not. No, sir.
Okay.
My heart sank. I thought he actually died for a moment.
Oh.
I was like, did I miss?
No. He'll be back. He'll be back as Dr. Doom very soon.
Inshallah.
So next, I know we've got a couple of segments here in a row that I think we've all been really looking forward to, hoping for. The first one is a new digital short, and it opens with Andy and Bowen talking about the anxiety that you have working on SNL. And they cut to old clips of Bassomatic and Mr. Robinson, Billy Crystal, and they've done the AI thing to the faces and make them look like they're freaking out. Then we also get Sarah Sherman, Parnes, Anna and Ollie, when it looked like it was going to be a clip, and it was actually them sitting at the delicious dish table. Then we cut to Forte at some point. We also get Keenan, Kyle, Yorma, Akiva, lots of the crew. This is a running theme tonight with finally kind of shining the light on all the crew that does stuff. Victoria, I'll start with you on this one. What did you think of the digital short SNL Had Anxiety?
Well, it was not my favorite digital short. I'll say that. But now that we've got that out of the way, I did think it was clever. It was a clever topic of, something that's tying into the history of the show and saying, oh, everyone's has anxiety, and that's like a shared emotion that cast members have had. I don't know. There was something missing for me here. I can't point it out. I need to probably rewatch it, and maybe on a rewatch I'll appreciate it more. But first take, I just can't identify what was missing for me. Of course, it wasn't awful. Like, I don't think anything digital short wise that's ever put out has been below a C grade for me, personally speaking. But I just thought it was missing something, and perhaps it's the rest of the crew, or maybe I really wanted Please Don't Destroy in there. I don't know. Yeah, it was just lackluster, but overall, I think it was funny. The idea of everyone having anxiety and IBS, and I really enjoyed Sarah Sherman's part in it. But yeah.
Yeah, Sammy, as someone who we once did a superfan takeover of every digital short, I know what a huge fan you are of these guys. What did you think of our newest incarnation of digital short?
I mean, yeah, like you said, I love these guys. I will never, ever complain about seeing a new SNL digital short. And what's tough for this one in particular is that we have gotten to this season that I think were some of the best they've ever done. I think both Sushi Glory Hole and Here I Go are like top tier shorts for me personally. So for me, I'm with Victoria on this. There was something missing about it. I think I like the concept to take similar to, That's When You Break, to have it be meta and comment on the show and use it as an opportunity to show old clips from the show, especially when, a lot of the clip show elements have been kind of axed from it. But it kind of, I don't know. I think it started kind of slow, and then when it started going into the IBS stuff and kind of finding different elements to it, is where I started to like it a little bit more. I did also feel just again, just knowing about going into the show with Bill Hader in particular, sort of talking about his history with anxiety in regards to returning to SNL, and then to do a whole sketch on this. I don't know. And to know that he wasn't going to be a part of the special, and we don't know exactly why, just I had that in the back of my head. So there are things sort of outside of the sketch itself that was just on my mind as I was watching it. So yeah, I'm happy we got something, and I liked seeing the cameos. I honestly think the back half of it with Chris Parnell and Sarah and, getting the delicious dish, I think those elements to me were really great. But yeah, for me, I feel very similar to Victoria. Just something was kind of missing, but I'm happy we got something.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you here. And I think part of it is not only the quality of it, but the fact that if you did watch the homecoming concert on Friday, and we got a Lonely Island mashup for the ages with Lady Gaga and, who else was in it? Eddie Vedder and things like that. And it was really maybe the highlight of the concert as far as the comedic pieces. So to have that just 2 days ago and be reminded of all the great stuff that they've done. And this did fall a little flat for me. I did enjoy some of it. I think kind of shining the light on the anxiety that we know a lot of the people that we admire the most from the show have struggled with. Bill Hader, Jan Hooks, among them, who had a really hard time going and performing live and had to get through it with their friends. I think finding kind of a funny angle to all of that was probably okay. I'm sure that Andy talked with Bill, even though he wasn't there, to kind of get his feeling for something like this. But yeah, it definitely was missing something for sure. Next up, we get a very interesting choice in songs. We get Aubrey Plaza. As I said, we're not going to get too deep into the music, but we get Aubrey Plaza, which is great to have her back in the building. Introduces Miley Cyrus and Brittany Howard, who also performed at the homecoming concert on Friday, and they sing Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You. And if you know the history of the show, Sinead was shadow banned from the show for ripping up a picture of the Pope. This was really her one huge hit for as far as radio play. I like this a lot, and I'd be curious to hear what both of you have to say about this. Victoria, were you happy to hear this song? Were you surprised?
I was surprised. I mean, I do want to also say, thank you to Aubrey for showing up. She's obviously been through a lot, and I adore her. So I was glad to see her face, and I hope tonight was fun and brought her joy. But regarding the song, I just thought it was lovely. I think it was them trying to make right by that decision. I don't think if that were to happen today that they would perhaps shadow ban an artist. I thought the song itself and, Miley and Brittany were lovely. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting thing that they were singing her song, but yeah, I do wonder if they're trying to make right by it because, rest her soul, but she's passed on. And that was I don't think a decision that they would make today if that were to happen.
Yeah, Sammy, I know in one of the documentaries that came out, one of the multitude of documentaries that came out recently, Al Franken mentions like maybe she was a little right in what she did. Whatever your feelings are on it, it's not really the point. The point is that she was making a statement, and then she never got to really come on SNL again. Now, so I think this is kind of a nice nod to almost a mea culpa. Yeah. So, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I think, as I'm watching it, I wasn't, necessarily clocking that it was a Sinead O'Connor song. So afterwards, with that context, I was sort of, reflecting on it. And I was like, yeah, I can see that as a production decision, especially since SNL50, we've lost Sinead O'Connor. I think definitely was, an intentional way to pay tribute to her. And obviously, the way that history is sort of recontextualized that moment in the show's history. I remember early on in my SNL watching career how much time they spent on that moment in the 90s documentary, and I really do feel like if you were to go back and look at the way they talked about it then and the way that they talked about it in this recent music documentary they put out, hindsight's 2020, and the way we look at things and moments in history change. And so I think, it was nice to see this as sort of a, an acknowledgement of her, as a part of the show.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at this at all. And it was a nice kind of getting away from what they typically do as far as music on SNL anniversary shows. So then this is maybe the highlight of the night for me. This is what I've been advocating for. Giving this its own hour of the special would have been perfectly fine with me. We get Weekend Update. And of course, you're going to start it with Jost and Che, who have done it longer than anybody else. We'll kind of break this down into categories. There's some funny jokes that they talk about as far as, Chevy being replaced by Keenan in season 2, and a little bit of a Norm tribute, which I love, that Che says, he got fired for making OJ jokes, and he's one of my heroes, and we miss you, OJ. We love you, OJ. I love that little nod. I think Norm would have loved that joke. But then we get correspondence, and this is not something that we've really seen at anniversary specials. The 40th, we got, impressions of Farley and Rosanna. But this is the straight up correspondence that we've seen at the desk. Some of the biggest names that we've ever seen. First up, we do get our lovely Cecily Strong in the building as the girl you wish you hadn't started a conversation with at a party. let's start with that. Victoria, what did you think of Cecily being back in the building?
I mean, welcome back, girl. I was not at all mad. In fact, quite the opposite. I loved it. Uh, I love that, she goes, wow, you assume I'm pregnant just because there's a baby? I was like, I loved it. It was just it's so funny. That's an update character that I think everyone loves. It's kind of hard not to. I love the tying in with, drunk uncle later there. And, I think she did a good job of touching, today's topics without making it sad, as she always does with this character. Yeah, I just thought it was a funny back and forth. The OG thing from Che was, oh, I was gonna swear, freaking hilarious. Um, and yeah, that was a good nod to Norm. I think he would have enjoyed that. He probably is chuckling from wherever he is. So yeah, I thought I love Cecily. I loved that she, tied in her pregnancy and, wishing her all the best. And yeah, I'll never be mad at her.
Yeah, Sammy, this was a great way. We haven't seen Cecily back on the show since she left a couple seasons ago. One of the all-time greats. So to have her here, we did get to see her for a bit on Friday night as well with the homecoming concert. But to have her do one of her most iconic characters, what were you feeling when you saw Cecily?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of hers. I've talked many times on the show how much I love Cecily Strong. And I believe this character she did on her first show, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Or at least early on in her tenure. So, such a great full circle moment, and such an interesting contrast from, I guess, what we see from the later characters, where they were kind of more sort of being meta about SNL50 and like the 50 years versus like Cecily, somebody who is not going to shy away from her political opinions, especially on the update desk, making mentions of asking if she can do the Elon salute and just so many great jokes there. So it felt very Cecily. The fact that she, did it, brought this character back, and, the reveal of Drunk Uncle being the father was such a great button. So I'm excited to dive into the Drunk Uncle of it all too. So yeah, I was very happy to see Cecily back.
Yeah, I'll quickly say I enjoyed this as well. We do get a lot of topical jokes here, which are not going to play 5 or 10 years from now. She does make a funny joke that would have been, I don't know how much we're going to remember Luis Woman Gioni in 10 years. And the Elon salute was very funny as well. But Sammy, yeah, go ahead and take your boy Bobby Moynihan bringing out Drunk Uncle and the reveal that he is the father to Cecily's baby.
Yeah, again, another SNL character crossover situation, after Robert Goulet and Dunice. But yeah, I obviously always love to see Bobby Moynihan. I was so happy to see him bring back Drunk Uncle a couple of years ago. And yeah, I think there's always been arguments of what his best character is. And I do really feel like I can safely say that this is my favorite Bobby Moynihan character. It's number one for me. That format and the way and that performance is just, you can slot in so many pop culture references and things that are going on so perfectly. I loved the runner of him saying, I'm not the land shark, okay, and which is a great nod to the fact that he told us when we interviewed him that he played the land shark during SNL50. So I love that callback. And then him saying, I'm not musical guest Timothy Chalamet, okay, like just so many perfect lines. So yeah, again, one of my favorites. Super happy to see Bobby here.
Yeah, Victoria, I think this was a great place to put him. I know that we kind of talked about would they bring Drunk Uncle back so quickly because we saw him on a cameo a couple of years ago. I think this was a brilliant play. And as Sammy points out, like another Easter egg for us super fans, knowing that he was doing the land shark back in 40. What did you think of Drunk Uncle making his triumphant return?
Is there ever a time where drunk uncle misses?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. So loved it. I loved that he said this is so niche. If it's like it's a generational thing. He said yesify. Like that is so chronically online verbiage, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I fell in love with Drunk Uncle the moment I saw him, and I'm always craving it. If honestly, if it was something that was on every episode, I'm just me here. I don't think that I'd be sick of it. I truly love Bobby Moynihan and Drunk Uncle. No, I don't really have much to add to what Sammy said. It was delectable. I love that he was the father of her child, and it was like it felt like the Marvel universe for me a little bit. Not that I've really watched those movies, but yeah, it was. I know. Different podcasts will talk about it. No, it was great. Bobby Moynihan doesn't miss, so there it is.
Yeah, I love this is the second time I've already heard a joke from SNL about musical guest Timothy Chalamet. They're already torching the fact that they let an actor sing random Dylan songs in January. So that was great. And the cheeseburger line and Colin going, oh yeah, that famous sketch from the 70s. No, I lost 4 cheeseburgers. So that really cracked me up. This was definitely a highlight of the night, not just because Bobby's a friend of the pod, and I think Sammy's best friend. I'm not sure, but this was great. This is a character that you can put in. It doesn't matter the time or the space, and he proved it again tonight. Next on the update desk, we move over to our friend Seth Meyers, who gets his own moment in the sun. One of the longest weekend update anchors as well before Jay and Jost passed him. And he's basically there to kind of introduce our next correspondence, where we get Vanessa and Fred back as the best friends, which was a great piece. This time they're Lauren's best friends from growing up. We get a lot of funny lines here. And Victoria, I'd love to know what you think about what we got from one of the most iconic correspondent pieces from the early 2010s.
I thought it was really fun to have them both back there and as Lauren Michaels' best friends growing up. But like, isn't it weird that they were wearing flannel? Like, right? Like, why were they wearing flannel? It was just right. Like, it doesn't make sense. No, it was really funny. It was nice to see Vanessa and Fred there. I think it was a great spot to kind of put them at the desk. I mean, Vanessa has a lot of great moments at the Weekend Update desk, so I was really hoping to see her in some capacity, and I got what I wanted. I should have been more specific, but nonetheless, I'll take what I got with her and Fred. Fred, who's become my best friend recently. So if you know, you know. No, but it was really funny. I really liked the bit. I thought it was short and sweet, especially with Seth. It was like it wasn't too much, it wasn't too little. It gave us just enough to laugh without overdoing it. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, Sammy, I think these are two of our favorite cast. I know we've stumped for Vanessa so many times on the show. Underrated because of her time on the show, kind of cradling the Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon eras. But she is an all-timer in our opinions, and this is one of her best characters. What did you think of this?
Yeah, this was such a pleasant surprise. Like, if you're placing bets on what characters they bring back for a special like this was not one I was expecting. And because of that, it did feel really fresh. Obviously, it's been a while since we'd seen them. It's such an underrated pairing to have Fred Armisen and Vanessa Bayer together. And I think using this concept to, sort of pay a little, poke a little fun at Lorne and just, making all these stories up about, we show up to help him move and he hasn't packed anything. Like I was absolutely dying by their performance here. So I do feel like, as part of like a 50th special, it's like, I don't think people consider this like an all-time great update character necessarily, but I was super happy to see this. Also happy to see Seth Meyers back in a suit after he has sort of retired that from his late night show. And yeah, one of the things I did want going into this was to give some love to that early 2010s sort of era. So we definitely got that with Bobby and Vanessa here, and we briefly see Taryn later, but was happy to see them all involved.
Yeah, this was a great piece. I think it's something that they didn't do too much, which you can't always say about that era of the show. It was done just the right amount, and we haven't seen it in so long. If Mike is still in the chat, if he wants to tell us the last time we saw the best friends. But yeah, this was very entertaining for me. I'm glad that Vanessa got her moment on the show. Fred has been up there with Anna as far as kind of getting their moment this weekend between the homecoming concert and tonight. So then we go back to Jost and Che, and I don't want to say I predicted this because I didn't, but I came close, Sammy. If you remember during that 4-hour marathon on Monday night, I said that we might get a Bill Murray celebrity corner. And, the thought is that he doesn't love his update tenure. It wasn't his favorite thing to do on the show. So not really sure if he's going to do this. He doesn't bring celebrity corner back, but he does bring back another piece that he did quite a bit, his top 10. And Bill Murray comes onto the stage to talk about the 10 best Weekend Update anchors in history. He starts by mentioning Che as the best African-American, and, pointing to SNL's horrible history with people of color. This is not even the biggest moment in this special that we get as far as that goes, but it is very funny that they point out their own kind of foibles as far as that goes. And then he runs through the list. We get Colin Quinn at number 10, Kevin Nealon, Dennis, Seth Meyers. Doesn't really want to talk about them. He wishes that they had time, and Colin says they do, but moves on anyway. He does Tina and Jimmy at 6, Tina and Amy at 5, because Girl on Girl is still popular. Chevy at 4, Jane and Danny at 3, and we get Norm at number 2. And of course, with any list that Bill Murray does, he throws kind of a wrench in it. The famous Saturday night news anchor, Brian Doyle Murray, his brother, at number 1. Sammy, what did you think of this exhaustive list? Would you made any changes?
Oh, I've notes on the list for sure, but I was super happy to see Bill Murray back. I think for me personally, I liked seeing Nick the Lounge Singer at the concert, but I found this bit to work a lot better in execution for me here. Somebody who, when I went back and watched that original era of the show, was pleasantly surprised, but I really enjoyed Bill Murray behind the update desk. So to sort of pay homage to that and give him that spotlight was great. And the reveal that the number 1 person on the list is somebody who's sleeping with Scarlett Johansson, which at first I honestly didn't know where that was going to go, because I didn't know if it was going to be like a lost in translation sort of reference and he was going to put himself sort of on top. But the reveal of it being Brian Doyle Murray was so great, acknowledging what a lot of people consider to be like the worst one of the worst seasons of all time, and that Saturday Night News era was not great, was bad. So was great to see Bill Murray, and I found that piece to be a nice reveal at the end there.
Yeah, we're getting the mix of two, the first generation and the current generation, and I love that aspect of it, kind of getting Billy and Colin playing off of each other, and Colin still being the CAD, can't even make this list of all time Weekend Update anchors. Victoria, what did you think of Billy Murray at the update desk?
Again, I will never be mad to see Bill Murray in any capacity. I enjoy him very much, and I think SNL did a great job during this whole special. I mentioned it up top with Sabrina Carpenter and Paul Simon, kind of bridging generations together, and then same thing here with Bill Murray and Colin Jost. I do love the bit that no matter who is, to the right of Colin Jost, or to Colin's, his right. Okay, not our right, of Jost. They're going to dunk on him. And it's just such a fun, playful back and forth. I really enjoyed it. I love the teasing of Colin and then pull it out. It's Quinn. Yeah, I thought it was very funny. And, I think it was, I just thought the timing was great. The delivery was great. And the jokes in there were awesome.
Yeah, everything on this show is full circle if you watch it enough. And I've talked about, Chevy did come back and host with Steve and Marty the first year I was watching, but that was a weird episode. Bill Murray was the first full-fledged former cast member to come back and host while I started my watching. And I've always been a big fan of his. I think his update tenure is underrated because of, Jane and Chevy being so strong. But yeah, this was fantastic. I love, again, we get another Norm reference, another OJ cut here. When he reveals Norm at number 2, and it said, made me ask the question, could OJ possibly have done it? I love that we're making OJ jokes in 2025. It's fantastic to see that. But yeah, this was one of the highlights of the night for me by far. So we get this incredible weekend update with all these people. I would have loved to see more correspondence, but I think they did a good job kind of covering a lot of different eras. Next, we get a more recent sketch in Alien Encounter making its return. Kate has now been returned to Earth 2 times, 3 times. I mean, she went off on that ship on her last episode, and now this is so. We get Kate, but we get a lot of new players in this one. We get 80 returning in her role as one of the interrogators. John Hamm filling in for Bobby Moynihan / Mikey Day. And then Pedro Pascal and Woody Harrelson. Hope he brought his Vax card, but he's there, and they're talking about being taken by these aliens. We get one of the biggest reveals, which I don't think was a secret by the time the show came on. Meryl Streep, the greatest American actress in some people's minds, making her first SNL appearance. Victoria, what did you think of the return of Alien Encounter?
One, surprised that there was yet another return of this, but really enjoyed it. I do wish it was Bobby Moynihan in John Hamm's place, just because as we mentioned earlier, we love Bobby Moynihan. I think that would have been a good opportunity to see him once again. But I also am not mad at John Hammond being there as well. Loved who they chose to be there alongside Kate. I did think, not that I didn't see his name floating around at all, but Ryan Gosling would have maybe surprised us. I think this is something that he's notable for on this show is, breaking. But I think Pedro Pascal did a great job. And I think Woody is a perfect character to have, a perfect actor to play the weird, eccentric character for this. And then, of course, Meryl Streep being the reveal. The gasp, I gusped, as the kids say, when she came out. That was so effing funny. I would love more of that if I could get more of it. I thought she played it really well. Her breaking, I loved it. I know we don't really like when people break, but I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasant surprise all around. I thought it really worked. I thought the people they chose to play in this worked, and of course, love to see 80. She looks great as usual. So no, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, and the first time that we've seen 80 since she left the show, so that was really great as well. Yep. Sammy, what did you think of Alien Encounter?
Yeah, this was the point in the night where, got kind of similar to your point about wanting Bobby in the John Hamm role, where I'm like, okay, I would love to see more cast, at least former cast members, fill some of these roles. Someone like Pedro Pascal, who I love and loved his episode, just the amount of screen time he's getting in a 50th anniversary special, I found to be just an interesting choice. Woody, I thought was really good in this. Honestly, I found, I mean, he's playing like the perfect sort of Woody Harrelson type character, but I think that works in this type of sketch. And as far as the decision to bring this back, I mean, I really think this is kind of solidified itself as like the Kate McKinnon character. It just so happens that since she's left, they decided to bring it back in the Ryan Gosling episode. So I do wonder if, that choice, if they could do it all over again, they'd probably still do it in the Ryan Gosling episode and then do it again here. But I think it would have hit harder as a big return, even though she's only been gone for like 3 years at this point from the show. But for me, the addition of Meryl Streep, somebody who on those lists that you make of, can't believe this A-list celebrity has never, hosted, SNL before. The fact that we got Meryl to, I thought when she was announced, I was not expecting her to be in a sketch. I thought she would have introduced some sort of, segment or, done a Q&A section in the audience. So to get a full character from her and the reveal that she is the Kate McKinnon character's mother, and she is, just like the Kate McKinnon character and is just so gross and physical, and she absolutely killed it. Absolutely killed it. I really, really hope that this sort of gives her the bug. Sort of similar to, obviously very different circumstances, but maybe Eddie Murphy coming back in SNL40 leads to him hosting. I would love to get a Meryl Streep hosted episode in the near future. So, because we got the Meryl edition in this sketch, it really elevated it for me and was happy to see this.
Yeah, that makes it for me too. And this won't be the only person we see tonight that people have wondered why they've never hosted. Now, the other person that we'll talk about a little bit later has cameoed and been an anniversary show. So this was pretty special for somebody who's been kind of in the culture for at least 45 of the 50 years that SNL has been around. I like this as well. I think the entire night kind of solidifies the fact that Pedro Pascal will be a 5-timer. They clearly have just not found the timing to get him back. I know, he cameoed in the Bad Bunny episode last year, but he's well on his way. Hopefully, with the return of The Last of Us coming soon, we'll get him later this spring because he's just fantastic. And I think John Hamm is great here too. We don't get to see enough of him in sketches because he has not been on, has not hosted in a very long time. He was obviously in the Kristen Wiig episode last year. Next up, we get a pre-tape. Pre-tape I don't know any of us would have expected, but fun nonetheless. Even if you don't like the character that we're about to talk about, one of the original cast members gets the most screen time that we see in the entire night, really, maybe outside of Billy. Lorraine Newman returns to the building, wants to kind of walk around, soak it in, and you think it's going to be this emotional piece, and there's Chad, our friend Pete Davidson, with maybe his only character outside of the update desk. Kind of controversial. Doesn't have they did it a lot when he was on the show. He doesn't have a lot of lines. It's okay. I personally like this character. I think Pete's really good in this. But to get to see one of the youngest cast members of all time interacting with an original cast member was really good here. Sammy, what did you think of the stagehand with Chad?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect with this, with that intro, of seeing Lorraine in there. I kind of thought it was almost going to be something similar to the Maya-ing sketch we got a couple years ago, perhaps. But when I saw Chad in there, I actually like the reveal, and I think when Pete was becoming a big celebrity outside the show, and we were seeing a lot more of Chad, I think it, like a lot of recurring characters, you kind of get sick of it. But I found that the dynamic between Lorraine Newman and the Chad character worked really well. And for somebody who was on the original cast to get this much screen time, in the 40th, we saw her in the Californians, but I think just to almost give her a two-hander and not just be a part of a whole ensemble, I think was a really awesome choice. So obviously you're going to get Pete in this special somewhere, and we see him again later on in the Mulaney musical. But yeah, I actually really did enjoy this. I can't necessarily remember, any of the lines or anything like that off the top of my head. I'll have to go revisit this, but I also think to do it in the 50th special and do it on the stage and have Chad be a member of the crew and everything like that was a good twist and element that they added to the typical Chad sketch.
Yeah, I'll point out one of the lines that just had me kind of rolling because I'm 12 inside. You know what I had in 1975, Chad? Big ass bush. So that was a really funny line that only Chad could deliver. I like this. Victoria, what did you think of the stagehand?
Okay. No, I
see
really
what you did
didn't. Again, another great example of bridging, old and new. And I'm not calling necessarily the folks old, but just in terms of, their time there. I thought it was funny. Well, I love how much we're seeing Lorraine Newman as well these days. And I love that she's being introduced to this generation of folks, and maybe perhaps they haven't gotten to see her, and I'm glad they see her now. Who better to drop trout in front of her too than Chad? No, it was funny. Of course, Pete Davidson's here. I think he's doing really well, and I'm really happy for him that he is. And I wanted to see him, in a big way during this special, and I'm glad it was Chad. And I thought the bit of him being a stagehand and him messing up the lights, and then the thing falling, it just really played well together. And as she's wanting to take a step back into memory lane and showcasing some of her buddies during her time there was nice. It was good. I keep saying that. I keep saying it was good, but I mean it.
Yeah. I'm thrilled with the attention that Lorraine has gotten, especially over since pretty much SNL50, kind of getting her due. Always kind of lingering in the background. She didn't get as much on. She didn't want to do recurring characters. So getting her in the Californians in season 40, and then also this, I really love this, and I was happy that somebody from the original cast got some time besides Bill Murray, although we do have one more coming up in a little bit. Then we get maybe the most emotional moment of the night. It's hard to say because there's so many, but we have Jack Nicholson, who I was referring to earlier, somebody who has never hosted the show, but did do a cameo in season 23 and 33, and was also at the 40th. He's not in the public eye as much anymore, so this was kind of a surprise and a pleasant one. He introduces Adam Sandler, who sings a song 50 years, and he kind of runs through the history of the show. Again, we get a lot of props to the behind the scenes people. And this feels like, in retrospect, the in memoriam section of the show. So we don't really get a proper one as we've gotten in other years. He does mention a lot of the people who we've lost over the years. And it's just, he brings up a lot of people that don't get mentioned enough. And we can talk about that a little bit here. But Victoria, what did you think of the Sandman returning with another emotional song?
Oh no, I think this is where I cry. Thought it was beautiful. And again, it was one of those things. Oh my God, I'm crying. It was one of those things where that was when I was talking about earlier in the show of, reminded me over and over again of why not just I, but everyone loves SNL, or at least this very community loves SNL. And, the characters and the actors who helped us get through some tough times in our lives. And, it was, I'm just going to get cut to it. The Norm and Chris thing at the very end gutted me. And that's when I full on started crying, and I'll try to hold it and be professional here, as professional as I can ever be. But I thought it was beautiful, and it was great. And I'm, no one better to do it than Adam Sandler. And I'm grateful for that song. And it was a nice, retrospective of everything that we've been able to enjoy from 50 years of excellence.
Yeah, Sammy, I think this was an interesting choice. I'm always a fan of in memoriams to kind of pay tribute to, all the people that we've lost. And this was a different way to do it, but I think it works. What do you think?
I definitely think this worked. I mean, I teared up as well. This, certainly harkens back to his moment when he hosted the Chris Farley song, which was such a great moment. And I think I honestly, I didn't even make sort of that connection, kind of silly to say in hindsight, about how this really is the replacement for the in memoriam section. Obviously, we get a different version of an in memoriam section later in the show, but I found this to be a great tribute to the people that have made up SNL throughout the years, and especially giving shout out to the people who in their era were big and got things on the show, like Tim Kazurinsky or even like a Melanie Hutzel, and their contributions to the show, but in the history books per se, are not given their due, especially in specials like this. I thought that was a great shout out, and it's just great. I mean, it's amazing to see. I'm doing my SNL watch right now. I'm on season 17, so I'm seeing Adam Sandler, as such a young person, getting a start, and to see him become this sort of elder statesman and sort of ambassador to the show, who, for so many years didn't come back. And now in the last, 5 or so years, between him hosting and cameos and, SNL40 10 years ago too, he's really become, such a great figurehead. Obviously he is a big star in his own right, but to really acknowledge his roots and, be able to come on a special like this and, so beautifully pay tribute to the cast that are the lifeblood of this show, was great. And it really got me, especially the Chris Farley and Norm Macdonald lines. Obviously we know the special connection he had with those guys in particular. So I was really, really happy we got this. Certainly one of the highlights of the night for me.
Yeah, again, this is really this hit me emotionally again. I mean, Farley we've talked about so many times, and that when he passed, it was just such a tragic moment. I mean, that's kind of the story of SNL, because most of the people who have passed on, especially the famous stars, died tragically or young. And Farley is among them, obviously. And then mentioning Norm again, he was at the 40th, so he's really the biggest name, I guess, that we've lost since then. Obviously, we've lost a lot of other people, including Tony Rosato and people like that who deserve their time as well. But yeah, to hear Jan Hook's name again, Melanie Hutzel, as you mentioned, Joe Dixo, Audrey Pert Dickman, who's waving the gun in the very first episode and was a huge part of those early years, and then obviously all the behind the scenes people like Wally getting his due, Nurse Teresa, Petey. I mean, Petey is mentioned in one of the documentaries as well. So really, really thrilled that we got this and get an opportunity to kind of celebrate the entirety. And nobody better to do it than Adam Sandler.
I also want to say that I love that he called out Groundlings in Second City. That to me,
yes,
obviously, if you know, that struck a chord with me too, because man, I'm catching myself before I cry too much, but it was a lot of people now go to those institutions to dive in, and we walk into a second city and you see pictures of Tina, Amy, Farley, and all these people around, and it's, again, those are the inspirations. And I say Farley should be here, but he's over my heart. He's over my heart always. Yeah, it was
Nobody would have loved a night more like this than Farley, for sure.
Yeah, and yeah.
It's mentioned in the chat. Obviously, Gilbert Gottfried was another one that we lost.
Yeah.
Many people that we've lost over the last 10 years, but should have also been given their moment. And that's kind of why I do wish we had gotten an actual in memoriam. But this was a way to go. Next up, we get what I think was probably the most obvious thing that we would have gotten, Sammy. I don't know. We covered this a lot on Monday. With the connection to New York, with the love for Mulaney over the last 10 years, especially, and always expecting this when he hosts, we get the New York musical, and we start in 1975. And I probably missed some people, but we get a cavalcade, probably the biggest of the night as far as people. We start obviously with John and Pete. We also get Spade making his appearance. We get Alex Moffat. We get Paul Schaefer, G.E. Smith, Nathan Lane, another wild one. Chloe Fineman gets a moment. We get Kate as Rudy Giuliani. Lin-Manuel coming back playing Hamilton again. Maybe they should have saved this from that cold open a couple weeks ago. Still hit very well, I think. We get Sarah. I swear that the de Blasio voice was Bill Brasky, but I'm not sure. We get Eric Adams, Devin playing Eric Adams. We get Scarlett Johansson. Keenan back as the Diner Lobster. Maya, Nick Jonas, Cecily, Anna, Taron Killam making an appearance. So I'm sure you guys can point out anybody I missed. Kristen, obviously, Forte, Sudeikis. What an amazing cavalcade. I don't even know what the damn songs were at this point because I was just so starstruck getting so many people in here. Sammy, what did you think of New York musical?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about things in the last 10 years that have become such a big part of, the SNL, basically, since SNL50 was become a notable sketch, this is one. Even though we saw one earlier this season when Mulaney hosted, I'm happy we got in a special like this to bring. It's a great opportunity to bring in so many different cast members. Like you said, David Spade, and when they go back to David Spade, once they move into like the 80s or 90s or something, and he's just back in the seat, he's like, oh yeah, I had enough of that. I think that was great. Nathan Lane doing a parody of Hakuna Matata, since he's the voice of Timon. Cocaine and some vodka, such a great moment there. I mean, I'm just gonna start listing everything that happened in the sketch. I was so happy to see some of the people from my cast, Sudeikis and Will Forte and Kristen Wiig together. The way that I would love to know if Jenna Ortega and Kevin Costner knew that they were going to be, sort of in between that Les Mis song between Forte and Sudeikis. I hope they didn't, because that almost adds to the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that these have become such a staple to sort of the last 10 years of the show. So to be able to use it as a vehicle to bring in a bunch of these people that, maybe wouldn't have had an opportunity to, have a spot in this special, I think was great. So yeah, this was one of the highlights of the night for me.
Yeah, Victoria, I think, as I said, we expected this, but you certainly did not know who was going to make appearances. And it was just a who's who, getting people like Moffat and Taron getting a small moment in the sun. Their contributions can't be overlooked for what they were able to do on the show. And yeah, I mean, the Rudy ness of it all. I mean, I can't imagine explaining to somebody who is of a certain age, that Rudy Giuliani was considered pretty highly at one point. And this was the perfect place to have Lin-Manuel Miranda. So what did you think of our New York City musical?
I was like trying to count everybody who was in there. I was like, what? Like you said earlier, I could not keep track of the songs where I was like, what? There's Beck Bennett, there's Kyle, there's Lynn, there's yeah, it was wonderful. I did audibly say, oh my God, when we saw Keenan as the lobster. I truly enjoyed that. Yeah, I love that we got to see Moffat too. I love Alex Moffat. He's probably one of my favorite, and I recently got to speak with him about comedy stuff too. So, beloved there. It was interesting to see him. He was a streaker, correct? That's what he was. Yes. And I thought we got to maybe see like an Eric Trump or like the boat. What is he? Boat sale. What is it? The guy who owns a boat. What is it called?
The guy who just bought a boat. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy who just bought a boat. I thought he would be in that capacity if we did get to see him. I saw him on the red carpet. I was like, oh, maybe we'll get to see that in some way. But I enjoyed it. It was truly star-studded, and loved the intro with Maya and Adam as a hot dog. I love that Adam was in it. I thought he was a great touch.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to shout out is I love how these have really started to break the fourth wall, especially in the last one where John and Pete call each other by their own name. Right. When Sarah does her, which New York mayor is she doing an impression of?
Bloomberg.
She does her Bloomberg impression. And Mulaney's just like, oh, that's your impression, or like make some comment on that. I love the meta aspect of that.
Yeah, and I have to point out a couple other people, and if there's anybody we missed, obviously, sorry, but ScarJo, love that with the did Colin who hit you, Colin? Not this time. Paul Rudd and JJ making an appearance as well. So yeah, this was just everything we could have possibly wanted to kind of get as many people as we can into a sketch and pay tribute to New York. So then we get one of our very few clip packages. It's a funny decision to do this. We get Alec Baldwin, really one of the few times we see him tonight, and talks about how his name is actually Alex, and they've been mispronouncing it all this time. And he's there to introduce the commercial parodies. So it's it's one of those things, especially in the 90s when they were releasing all these compilation VHS and eventually DVDs, that commercial parodies was one of those that people gravitated towards because they kind of transcend time. It doesn't matter what product they're talking about. Is there anything that sticks out as far as these go, Victoria, that you want to talk about?
I do love the have trouble sleeping, try after update. That was kind of funny. Shout out to Phil Hartman's commercial with the fiber and all that. No, I thought it was a great compilation. I really love seeing it. The mom jeans shout out. That was a big one for me. That was like one of the first commercial parodies that was really ingrained in my head. But no, I thought it was lovely.
Yeah, Sammy, I think we got some obvious ones like "Oops, I Crap My Pants" and "Chocolate Donuts," but you have to appreciate the fact that our boy Tim Robinson got one moment there with his Z shirt, one of the few highlights in his 1 year on the show. Obviously, he's gone on to blow up all over the place. So, what did you think of this compilation?
Bill, you're right on the money there, because I didn't write down much for this one, but the only thing I wrote other than Alex jokes were Z shirt ! So it was very happy to see that sort of ingrained in, people will look back and be like, oh, wow, Tim Robinson was on SNL. Like if someone doesn't know. So I like that addition. Yeah, it is just weird to have just, I guess, essentially two of these clip packages in here. Just the way the show is all sort of laid out and having this so close to the end was interesting. I honestly, for me, I kind of wish they had just done more riffs, honestly, on some of these products, like the third year veneers, and they bring out Sarah Sherman with, you know, the fakest looking teeth ever. I really like that, but you know, in an anniversary special like this, you're going to get some sort of compilation. So yeah, you know, this was solid.
Yeah, I agree with you, and this would have been a perfect place to do another commercial parody. SNL's kind of moved away from that. We get them occasionally, but obviously the concentration is on either musical pre-tapes or, you know, stuff like PDD or Dan Bula. So yeah, it would have been a great place to kind of maybe give it a full sketch if you're going to do the after update sleep pill. You know, give it the full treatment before you go into this clip package. But overall, pretty good. I think we got some good ones here. Next up, we got Bronx Beat, the return of Bronx Beat, Amy Poehler and Maya Rudolph, obviously. Certainly the choice of Miles Teller, iconic one-time host from a pretty good episode. I guess the point was that he's a very good-looking man. So you got to bring somebody in who hasn't had anything to do yet. So this is a good place for him. But then we get another mashup. So we get Linda Richman coming into the building from Coffee Talk and mixing it up with the Bronx Beat girls. And we even get a Paul Baldwin mention, which, you know, another Easter egg for fans, super fans of the show. Coffee Talk was hosted by Paul Baldwin twice before, who was also Mike Myers, before being replaced by the iconic Linda Richman. So, Sammy, I'll start with you on this one. What did you think of the return of Bronx Beat?
Yeah, I mean, again, just 50 years, you know, feeling nostalgic, going back to my SNL origins. The first episode of SNL I ever watched live was the Zach Braff hosted episode, I think in season 31, season 31 and season 32, the finale, because I was a big Scrubs fan. And I'm like, oh, this guy from Scrubs is hosting SNL. I'm going to watch. And they did a Bronx Beat in that episode. So to come full circle and see these characters back, I like that a lot. I do think, yeah, just having Miles Teller in there is kind of, you know, just playing into sort of just the cute guy archetypes they would used to have in those sketches. I thought he was a decent host, so I wouldn't mind to see him back. I think you bring Miles Teller in here to do the Top Gun 2 runner. I think they've realized they had something there with Amy just you know, continuing to incorrectly call it Top Gun 2 versus Top Gun Maverick. I thought that was a good bit. It was unfortunate that they had some mic issues at the top of the sketch, but they were able to fix it. You know, a little bit into the sketch, and yeah, being able to get this crossover with the Coffee Talk character was nice to see. It was nice to see Mike Myers on the show. And this should have been our big sort of tell that Dana Carvey was not in the building. I mean, you know, at first I was like, not entirely sure if I missed him at the red carpet or what was going on there, but I do feel like if he had been there, we almost certainly would have gotten a Wayne's World over an appearance from this character. But, you know, this is a character we haven't seen in decades, really. So to get the opportunity to mash up these characters was fun to see. I to be honest, not one of my personal highlights of the night, but I'm glad that we got something from Mike Myers here.
Yeah, Victoria, I'm not. I wouldn't put either one of these sketches in my all-time list. I mean, especially this was an era, especially with Linda Richman, where they brought it out way too much. You know, early '90s. But I do love that they were able to find a way to mash them up and kind of see the similarities that these characters all had. What did you think of the return of Bronx Beat / Coffee Talk?
Oh, I love sweater weather. Sweater weather. I love it. No, I thought it was really fun. I was like, hi, Amy. Missed you. Love you so much. No, I liked Bronx Beat. It was one of my favorites. And really, really happy to see Mike Myers. I saw him in the audience, and you know, that was something my dad and I were pointing out, like, oh my gosh, it's Mike Myers, and very excited to see him, and then to have him come together. I think this was another bridge almost of different generations of SNL that they did, I think, really in a fun way. Miles Teller was random. I do also think he was a good host when we had him. I think he was a season opener for, what was it, 47 or 48?
48.
48. Yeah. And I think he really, from the top, he did a great job with Peyton Manning, who's also a friend of the show. But nonetheless, I love the Top Gun 2 bit. And he's like, Top Gun Maverick. She's like, she's not going to call it that. She's not going to call it that. She goes, he likes to tussle on the beach. Which, again, a fun moment. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Probably not my favorite thing in the world, but when I saw Mike Myers, I was a very happy girl. So I cannot complain about this one bit.
Yeah, I'm always happy to see Mike in the building. We don't get him nearly enough these days. And
No.
it's I do like when he does come out that they both drop two other character mentions by saying that we're not worthy and touch my monkey. So we get a little Wayne / Dieter mention there. Yeah, this wasn't the best moment of the night, but it's certainly seeing these three all-time cast members in the sketch together was really, really fun. I was trying, you go back through your brain and you try to figure out who's worked together. When Mike came back to host, was Amy there? No, I don't think so. Like, you're just kind of trying to put the pieces together, especially for somebody like Mike, who's only hosted once, I believe. So that's fun in itself. It doesn't always have to be the current cast with older cast members. You got so many different eras that it worked on a couple different levels. Next up, Lil Wayne. Interesting choice, doing a medley of his hits, Uproar, Lollipop, 6 Foot, 7 Foot, Mrs. Officer. I mean, we're not going to talk too much about this, but Sammy, you got anything on this?
I mean, I was happy to see him. I almost feel like for him, this was like sort of a consolation prize for not getting the Super Bowl in New Orleans, where he's from, and that was a big topic of conversation online, especially in hip hop centric podcasts and Twitter and things like that. So again, I'm a big fan of hip hop and of Lil Wayne. So it was really cool to see him perform with the Roots, especially. I've seen him perform in the last couple of years, and he always has a live band backing him, which is kind of unique for a hip hop act. So not somebody who I necessarily think about when I think of like all-time great SNL performances specifically, but I think he brought it on the show tonight. I think his mic was a little low, but yeah, was overall happy to see him.
Got a real hot mic here. Need to work those DBs. Victoria, what did you think of Lil Wayne being here?
Listen, those songs, Lollipop, 6 Foot, 7 Foot, Mrs. Officer, and Millie, those were like the highlights of my middle school and high school experiences. Yeah. And then Uproar post college, a great beat. I was feeling it. I knew the words. My dad was shook that I knew the words. Don't worry, Dad. Don't worry about how I know. I thought it was fun, and I agree with Sammy. Like, the mic was a little low. Wish my voice wasn't overpowering his when I was rapping along, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good energy, but that's just me because I've enjoyed his music. But I also love that Sammy kind of pointed out that with the whole New Orleans Super Bowl thing, maybe this was his moment with a lot, the second best, not the second best, but probably the second thing with a lot of eyes on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. This kind of bothers me with the history of SNL as far as music. Maybe they spent all their, choices for the concert on Friday night, because you could definitely see some of those people. I mean, imagine Eddie Vedder being on the special tonight, doing any of the songs that he did on Friday night. Even Cher, who killed it on Friday. This was certainly a choice, and I don't think the history with the show is strong enough for somebody like Lil Wayne that you can really talk about why he's here. But it was fine. And yeah, we'll move on. So next we get one of those zigzags that our friend Andrew Haynes likes to do. You know, we think it's going to be one thing, but it's not. We get America's Dad, Tom Hanks, coming out. It feels like it's going to be kind of a tribute and in memoriam. But no. We're talking about sketches and characters that have aged horribly. So this will dive into a little bit more than the other clip packages because there are some funny things here as they acknowledge their really questionable history as culture has changed. We get a lot of different things like ethnic stereotypes, sexual harassment, and they're cutting to the clips as they're doing this. You get Adrian Brody and his Rasta gear with just the word "whoa" underneath it. Animal cruelty, body shaming, slut shaming, gay panic, not that long ago, sexism, child molestation, questionable makeup, and problematic guests. So it's a lot to unpack here. We don't have to get into every single clip, obviously, but is there anything that kind of stood out to you, Victoria, as far as this aged horribly in memoriam?
There was one, didn't it say a lot of things going on with this one or something like that? Or a few things going on here. I thought that was so funny. I gasped when I saw the Lindsay Lohan one, the underage. I didn't realize she was underage when that was. No, I thought it was a funny take on it. I thought that was a very clever way of pointing out, hey, a lot of this would not fly today, and calling out some of those scenes for what they were. I mean, like taking pictures of those little girls on the Polaroid or whatever it was so creepy. Like, did not even, you know what I mean?
Right.
Ew, I don't like it. No, I thought it was a clever way of calling that out. And then like the random blurring of faces near the end of it was very funny. Love the woe, and just like what they were. I mean, they were just, yeah, it was sharp, and they called it out. People have called it out, I think, leading up to this in various ways. And yeah,
Yeah, Sammy, I mean, this, you have to laugh at it because if all the clips were from 1975, you'd be like, oh, 50 years ago. But the fact that they have to point out Lindsay Lohan, Lucy Liu, things like that. Is there anything that stood out from all of these that kind of make you go, wow, I can't believe they did that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this was a great zag. I really was fully expecting when Tom Hanks came out there, we'd get a real in memoriam section. So yeah, it was interesting that they chose to do this. I mean, the Adrian Brody clip is something that I think is very funny with the timing of it all, because their new, the show's new best friend is Timothée Chalamet, who is his main competition for the Oscar this year. And Oscar voting closes in like a couple days. So I was seeing some stuff on Twitter, just like, oh, SNL's trying to get Timmy that Oscar and put this back in the news cycle. So I found that to be funny. I mean, I think it would have been a really funny choice in hindsight for this is you get Billy Crystal to introduce this segment, because him more than any other cast member on the show, has been the subject of this kind of stuff with the characters he played on the show. But yeah, I found this to be an interesting way to look back at 50 years and comment on how, things are not going to age well, and the show still goes on and learns from their mistakes.
Yeah, there's certainly things that almost immediately. I mean, I think with Canteen Boy, they made an apology the following week, saying that he was a 32-year-old man. So that it wasn't supposed to be a child. And then there's stuff that you just kind of, I mean, you think about the fact that they were doing blackface into the 2000s is just mind-blowing in this day and age. You can't just go, well, Billy Crystal did it in 1984. No, Jimmy Fallon was doing it in the late 90s. So I do appreciate the fact that they kind of called themselves out on it, and I do like the problematic guests, because that is really funny to think about, because there's no way that you could know that OJ was going to become a murderer, that Robert Blake was going to become a murderer, that Kevin Spacey, well, maybe you knew about Kevin Spacey, but most of it you didn't really realize at the time. Like, so that's going to happen, especially with the show of 50 years. I mean, you think about most TV shows now, like that 70s show, having to kind of erase a couple people who were on there. It's unfortunate, and kind of acknowledging it and moving on, I think was a good choice here.
I do want to say, so I hate to say it, I did miss I looked up and saw they were on the screen, and then it moved on, Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor, as I was writing notes for this, and I'm reading in the chat what was said, and I was like, hello? That's very shocking to me, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very shocking to me.
I do
Yeah.
wonder why they decided to beat that, because it's kind of an important. I know you don't want the calls the next day, especially with social media, things like that. Dropping clips like that would probably be more trouble than it's worth, as opposed to people who are raising their fist and saying, you got to play it the way it was played. It was an important piece of the show. Probably not a good idea at 10:30, 10:45 at night on a Sunday. So if you want to hear the actual thing, then you can go find it, obviously. Next up, we get Debbie Downer back in the building. Interesting choice. Again, we're reaching. This is post update, so maybe we need to take our post update sleeping medicine at this point, because I don't know how I feel about this one. They have made a meal out of what was basically one really good sketch and five terrible ones. But I love Rachel Dratch. I'm glad she got a moment with all these people. You get Rachel as Debbie Downer. You get Io, which is great to see back in the building. Drew Barrymore, Jimmy Fallon. Eventually, we do get De Niro walking in to kind of set things right, and it goes from there. Sammy, I'll give you the first one. What did you think of the return of Debbie Downer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I overall like this. Kind of like you said, Rachel Dratch, always happy to see her. These people who, obviously she pops up in movies and TV, but it isn't somebody who we see all the time. So being able to see something from her, and this is obviously her most iconic character, I thought it was good to see. I found the choice of who's in the sketch was so interesting between Jimmy and Drew Barrymore. Obviously have that connection, but then throwing Io in there, and then De Niro. I honestly think De Niro was the highlight of the sketch when she's saying, "Are you talking to me?" bit. I think was good. Almost kind of made this whole thing worth it. Him saying, I don't want to talk about plastic in my balls. I thought it was a great line. And getting that from De Niro was really funny. So yeah, I don't know. I think, overall, I'm not mad we got this. I think it was very much beat for beat a Debbie Downer sketch. It wasn't anything crazy. But for a show that was pretty heavy on, honestly, post 2005 sort of callbacks, I think it was nice to see something even from 5 years prior, from of that generation, getting some representation of that. I think was good to see.
Yeah, Sammy, I know we talked about it on Monday. I think, if you're going to have Dratch and Fallon in a sketch, Boston teens, like, let them be grandparents at this point. Like, the last time we saw them, they were parents dropping their kid off at Harvard. So this would have been a great way to go, but, it's fine. Victoria, what did you think of what we got here from Debbie Downer?
I'm glad that Rachel Dratch had her moment, is what I'll say. I know that Debbie Downer had the one very funny one with, Lindsay Lohan and all that. But I'm glad just she had a moment to shine here. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you've got 3/4 of lovers. Like that would have been a fun comeback with Drew Barrymore, Jimmy Fallon, Rachel Dratch, and Will Ferrell was in the building. It would have been fun to maybe pull him here and tie it in all together or something like that. Again, another great bridging of generations with Io and De Niro. That rhymed. But yeah, it was I thought they had other opportunities to make her shine. I thought also the same thing, like Boston Teens too would have been great. Yeah, it was good for what it was, and I'm glad that, again, just to reiterate, that Rachel had her moment. She deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody from that era deserves it, it's Rachel. I don't think she gets nearly enough credit for what she was able to do on the show. And
Absolutely.
De Niro is an interesting case. There was a point where, people were clamoring like they're going to be clamoring now for Meryl Streep to host, for De Niro to host, and he's had a rocky history. It took him a long time to get onto the show, and his hosting gigs weren't considered really, really good. He did a lot of cameos in the Trump era, which were not really well received either. But he is one of the greatest actors living, and I think tonight we got to see him in a role that he really shined in, being able to go toe to toe with Dratch. And yeah, Drew Barrymore back in the building is always a pleasure. We don't nearly get her enough. We didn't get her in the Five Timers Club earlier this year, so it was good to see her back as well.
And I will say, for a brief moment, I was like, Meryl and De Niro? Like, what an opportunity they were in Deer Hunter together. They're like other movies together. I was like, oh, would have been if you were gonna put Meryl Streep in, like, let's put her in. But that's a dream for a different day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So next up, we get Scared Straight, the return of Scared Straight. I don't know if Mike is still awake with us, but this has not been seen in a long time, even though Keenan is very much still a part of the show. I don't know. The last one I really remember is Betty White, which was a very long time ago, but maybe it's happened since.
Season 37 was the last time Mike tweeted it out earlier. So 4,733 days ago.
Wow, that's our Mike. This is a beat for beat every time. You're going to get the three kids who are all replaced at this point, because I guess Andy and Bill well, Bill wasn't even there, but are a little too old to play those roles. We get Mikey, Marcello, and Mikey Longs, and we get Jason, obviously, Keenan. But here's the big get: we get Eddie Murphy and Will Ferrell playing the other convicts who are there to straighten these kids out. I was geeking out at this point because, to my recollection, this is the first time we've ever seen Eddie and Will in a sketch together. Maybe my two favorite cast members of all time. So getting to see these two, future movie stars after they left the show, shine together in this sketch. It hits a lot of the same beats that we're used to, but yeah. What did you think of Scared Straight, Victoria?
So funny. I like the lines, the punchlines were so effing funny. Not Hogwarts, warts on your hog. Expecto fellatio, like, so dumb. They could have, like, done lighter on the fellatio stuff, but nonetheless, very funny. I do like that they brought in the current cast here with, Marcello. What is his name? Who's the middle? Mikey Day. Lord, I'm sorry, Mikey. Mikey Day, I'm so sorry. If you're watching, I love you so much. And
Okay.
and Longfellow. I thought it was very funny, the surprise of it, being Eddie Murphy as all the way Ray, because he doesn't do anything halfway. And then you see, I thought that Will Ferrell coming with those short shorts was a nod to his patriotic, the 4th of July sketch that they did a long time ago. And then like the meta of it all, of referencing their own movies, the Nutty Professor and Elf or whatever it may be. I thought it was really funny. Yeah, I just thought it was fun. I love that Keenan was a little bit rougher on Mikey Day. And I thought it was really funny. It was one that made me laugh the most tonight.
Yeah, I that is kind of the new twist that we get here, that they are referencing their own movies. So that's a lot of fun. Sammy, what did you think of the return of Scared Straight after 4,000 plus days?
Yeah, I was so happy to see this back. Something that I feel like when we've talked about, the type of sketches that we'll see Keenan possibly bring back, or characters he'll bring back if he ever decides to leave the show and have like a final episode, or maybe when he hosts one day. This is something I would have wanted to see back, and I'm glad we got this here. This late into the night, getting Eddie Murphy in a major role, I was shocked to see. And this is exactly what we talked about, Bill, earlier in the week when we previewed this, where what I really was looking for with this episode or this special was to get some of the all-time cast members, the stars who became huge stars outside of the show, who never did a movie together, whether it was a Sandler or a Kristen Wiig or something like that. And so to get I think you could make a really good case that these two are the two greatest cast members of all time. They're certainly on the Mount Rushmore. So to get them in a sketch together with Keenan too was awesome. So I loved how they incorporated all their own movies into it, and all those references. I mean, the Harry Potter runner as well. They went through almost every Harry Potter book. That when the sketch first started. So overall, this is a character that I've wanted to see back from Keenan for a while, and to infuse people like Eddie and Will into it. This was such a great surprise as essentially our last real sketch of the night. And I think it ended really strong.
Yeah, and Keenan seemed to really be enjoying himself. He was kind of, I think, kind of reminiscent of his early days on the show when he did more characters like this. I mean, I don't know that we would want to see Scared Straight all the time. I think it kind of ran its course, and it's something that we wouldn't want to see on a regular basis. But as you said, like this is really a key moment to have all these people together. Eddie even doing his line, Hercules, Hercules. I mean, even if you haven't seen The Nutty Professor, you know that line, and playing all the characters was really, really funny. So I'm glad we got to see Eddie twice tonight. We got to see Will a bit, and getting some love to the current cast, especially Marcelo and Mikey Longs here, was really, really great. So we're reaching the end of the night. We got a couple more segments that we'll briefly touch on. One of my favorite moments for sure, we get to see the unbelievably iconic Garrett Morris sitting at home base. 88-year-old legend out there, reads his lines like a pro. These 40-year-olds that come on and read the cue cards could learn a lesson from Mr. Morris. And he's there to talk about he didn't know that there were going to be so many reunions required when he came to do the show, and it was asking if there's any cops there. Not a lot to talk about here other than just some love for Garrett. He introduces Don't Look Back in Anger, which of course is very famous because it's a Schiller piece that Belushi is the only surviving member of the Not Ready for Primetime Players. So Sammy, what did you think of getting to see Garrett here, especially this late in the evening?
Yeah, I mean, he's a true legend. So somebody who had a small piece in SNL50, but just have him center stage and be able to address the audience and introduce this sketch, which again, an iconic sketch for many reasons, was great. And I read, I think someone in the comments had said that he and Ellen Cleghorn were maybe supposed to be in Black Jeopardy, and I don't know the validity of that, but Obviously would have liked to see him in that if that were the case, but I'm glad that he got a moment here because just a true legend for so many reasons. So I was happy to see this.
Yeah, Victoria. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, we talked about Lorraine earlier, who didn't get their due, especially in the early years of the show, kind of overshadowed by the superstars that became, for better or worse, from that original era. And Garrett even more so, I think. And I think the new movie has kind of shined a light on how great and important he was. What did you think about seeing 88-year-old Garrett Morris here?
My heart burst. I I thought it was very sweet. I loved that he had, a short and sweet moment, and even seeing him on the red carpet earlier made me very happy, and I love that he was there, and I love that he got to do this little homage to his fellow castmates, even though it was kind of, you know. Yeah, no, he's the best. He's one of the best, and I'm glad that he was there.
Yeah, me too. I think seeing him on Two Broke Girls about a decade ago got to really
Yeah.
shine. He's been on so many different shows over the course of time, so getting to see him get his moment here was really, really great. And then we come to the end of the night, which is crazy. I think Sammy, we've got like another hour and 40 that we should do. So I don't know if you
I
want to
think
take
so,
a break
yeah.
here. Okay, we'll break down every word that was said. We get Martin Short coming out and introducing one of the Beatles. This was an opportunity missed. Could have had Lauren come out with the check, but okay, I get it. Paul McCartney is there to sing "Carry That Weight" and "The End," two amazing songs from one of the best albums of all time, in Abbey Road. And just one last Easter egg that we get here, where he says the obvious line here, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Became even more famous because of the Chris Farley show. Sammy, I'll start with you here. What did you think of the end of the night here with Paul McCartney?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say other than it was awesome. I really, really liked seeing this, especially because, some of the other, I guess, performances we got. I mean, we saw Miley at the, homecoming concert and things like that. So, to just get somebody like Paul McCartney in the building, to close out the show like this, I thought was just awesome. So, I think this was a nice way to end the night.
Yeah, Victoria, it became kind of clear somewhere in the second and a half hour, third hour, that one of the big names we hadn't seen yet was Paul McCartney, and obviously Paul Simon opened the show, so kind of got the feeling that he was going to end the show, right?
Yeah, it was a brilliant performance. I really loved when they panned to the audience and everyone was up on their feet dancing and singing along, and I thought it was a great moment and a great button for a wonderful night.
Yeah, completely agree. And we come back from commercial and we get the good nights. We hear that iconic music, and we get one last moment where Marty's trying to shout out to Lauren. Paul McCartney interrupts him to get his due, which was kind of weird. But eventually we do get to the point where we're thanking Lauren Michaels for what he's put on for the last 50 years. 45 of 50 years, if you want to be technical. And, him kind of actually soaking it in, not, he doesn't like that kind of attention. But seeing all these cast members on stage, I know friend of the pod, Gary Kroger was front and center. And that was so great to see somebody who's overlooked. A lot of great names on the stage. We get a picture of Gilda being held up. It's a really, really special moment here to kind of end the night. Victoria, what did you think of the good nights here?
Good. Do you see the tears? They just came down. I told you, and I saved it right for the end. The Gilda picture got me. It got me. My favorite part of SNL, not gonna lie to you, is is good nights. That is my favorite part. It always bums me out if they ever cut it, and just to see everyone there and talking to each other, and then the Gilda thing. It was emotional for me. But no, I thought it was, dare I say it, it was a beautiful sight to see, just to see that stage overcrowded with some really talented people. I loved it.
Yeah, Sammy, I think this is going to be one of those freeze frames I go back and watch and try to pick out all the people, getting ready for the podcast, and couldn't really soak that part in as much because, but it was really touching to see all the people that were up there and had a moment to kind of acknowledge the fact that this show is unlike anything we've ever seen. Were you happy with the way this kind of came to an end?
Yeah, I mean, with these anniversary specials, just seeing like everybody get up there, it really is just a way to visualize the amount of people who have been on the show through the 50 years and, have been such an important part of its history. And even if, they don't get their due, in the special itself, just getting their moment sort of on stage was nice. I guess one thing that I wish was maybe a little different just with this particular moment was it seemed like Marty was trying to really give a shout out to the original cast. And I wish they were maybe a little bit more front and center, but I'm sure that was just a controlled chaos, trying to get everybody on the stage like that. So I'm glad he shouted them out. But yeah, I mean, it's, what a sort of visual to sort of end the night and just see, sort of the Where's Waldo of everybody who was there in the building.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a testament to this show and the power that it has. I mean, all the people that are still chatting with us, talking to us at 2:15 in the morning Eastern time. It's now like hour 7 of the SNL celebration, and we're all just still so excited and amped up for what we got to see and all the wonderful moments that we got to see this evening. Wow. Well, we did it, guys. We did the thing. So let's go around the panel. Sammy, thank you for joining me. It's been so nice talking to you twice this week. I miss our superfan takeovers, and maybe we'll have to do one based just on the 50th. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Bill, you absolutely killed it in the hosting seat, and Victoria, always great chatting with a fellow Detroiter about SNL. You guys can find me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And yeah, always here on the SNL network. I'm sure I'll be on a hot take show or roundtable in the coming weeks. I'm super excited for this next run of shows, and the SNL50 special's over, but SNL50 the season is still chugging along. So we'll see what else we have in store. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Victoria, always a thrill to talk to you. We just got to talk over at the SNL Hall of Fame about the Tim Meadows. So I'm so excited that you were here tonight. Thank you for joining us. Where can everybody find you?
Tim Meadows, another Detroiter. Well, great job, Bill. You did an amazing job tonight. We're very proud of you too. Very proud of John and James tonight as well. Sammy, my Detroit brother, which fun fact, Sammy and I randomly met at a PDD show in Metro Detroit, and it was just it's kismet. And then we got to meet them.
Yes.
Yes, which was really great. Where can you find me? You'll probably find me here sometime in the near future. If you're in the Detroit area, you'll also probably find me at Go Comedy Improv in Ferndale. So thank you all for having me. This is, I'm not going to cry again. It's happening. It's an honor just to be here. Thanks, Papa John, for letting me letting me be here and letting me say some nonsense in front of a bunch of people who love SNL just as much as I do.
Yeah, and one more shout out to John Schneider, who brought us all together. I can remember watching SNL50 and thinking it can't get any better than this. Like this is great. What a night, and going on socials and being able to talk about it, but to be able to talk to real people I consider friends and colleagues and people that I can't wait to meet in person in most cases. We've been doing this for 5 years now, and it was all kind of leading up to this, but we're not going anywhere, as Sammy says. We've got a lot more coverage. The roundtable will be on Tuesday night this week because of this being Sunday. We'll give John a chance to get back into Canada, get through all those tariff restricted things. But Tuesday night roundtable at the normal time at 8 p.m. And then Wednesday night, By the Numbers with Mike Murray. What a show that will be to watch, seeing him break down all of the people. That chart is going to be about 85 pages long. And then, of course, we'll be back live on a Hot Take show on March 1st, which is only 13 days away. So we can kind of start planning for that. Who's going to be the next host announced? Who's going to be the next musical guest? It's really going to be a fun end to the show. And hopefully the 50th anniversary celebration continues. We are, of course, a presentation of latenighter.com for Sammy Kay, Victoria, and myself, Bill Kenney. Thank you all for staying up so late and watching one of the biggest nights in television history. We'll see you next time. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.